What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and welcome back to the 32-team 7-round mock draft series, where today we're going to take a look at a team that holds the 14th overall pick in the first round. That is the Atlanta Falcons, and they've had a quiet offseason. I would think they franchise tagged Grady Jarrett, which is good. They definitely did not want to lose him, but they did lose Tevin Coleman, who was an exciting playmaker on their team. They moved on from last, how many years? 2 years? 3 years starting tackle in Ryan Schrader. And in reality, that's pretty much it. Not a lot of crazy transition here for the Atlanta Falcons. So it kind of follows the trend, which has been the last couple years of mock drafts for the Atlanta Falcons. From top to bottom, they haven't had like a lot of glaring holes when it comes to building the roster. So it makes mock drafts, depending on what way you want to look at it, it's either easy because you kind of just go best player available, or it's kind of hard because you can't really find needs that need to be addressed right away. But we're going to try to do our best here. And without further ado, jumping in to pick 14 in the first round, I'm selecting Jonah Williams, offensive lineman from Alabama. Look at the potential weakness right now, Atlanta Falcons, and it's the right side of their offensive line. Right guard, you're probably going to have Brandon Fusco, and right tackle, Ty Sombrello. Could do better. Yeah, could do better. A lot of people think Jonah Williams is the most complete offensive lineman in this class, one of the safer picks in the entire class, and I think with Jonah Williams, he can start day one on either spot on that right side of the offensive line at tackle or guard. And to like kind of bring it to a player on the Falcons, kind of reminds me of Jake Matthews. Like when Jake Matthews was coming out of Texas A&M, he was that guy. He's just a safe prospect, good at almost everything you want an offensive lineman to be good at, not necessarily elite at anything, but with those traits, you still can be a very good starter for a long time in the National Football League. And I feel like it might not be the flashy pick that some Falcon fans want, but the fact that he can instantly come in and will start and be an upgrade to one of those spots on the offensive line at pick 14, that is a big plus for the Atlanta Falcons. Moving into the second round at pick 45, I was selecting Julian Love, cornerback from Notre Dame. Atlanta's kind of lacks cornerback depth. If I had to try to find another weakness, I think a guy like Julian Love can come in and compete for that cornerback 3/nickel role as a rookie. Like right now, it's a tough to look from an outsider, not a diehard fan, at what the secondary is going to shape up to be for Atlanta. You're going to assume you're going to have Desmond True front and Isaiah Oliver outside. Then from that, I mean, you get Ricardo Allen and DeMonte KZ in safety. Maybe one of those guys moves to nickel. KZ played a little nickel, I believe, at San Diego State. I don't have my scouting report still on him. I wish I still did. But, I mean, maybe that's what they do. But ultimately, a guy like Julian Love to come in and be the third corner on the roster, it's definitely a position to need. What if one of these guys goes down? Desmond Trufant or Isaiah Oliver goes down, they're kind of screwed. So a guy like Julian Love, who was really productive in college, last 2 years at Notre Dame, 130 tackles, 4 interceptions, which is not great, but 36 pass breakups. So while he wasn't able to secure the turnover, he just is always around the ball, making a lot of plays. I think ultimately good value in the second round. He's a legit second round. He was a guy had an average, like as expected, maybe combine. If he had a great combine, kind of blew some expectations out of the water, you might have been able to project him going in the late first. I think in the second round, that's great value there. Back to back in the second round, getting great value in the secondary. Isaiah Oliver last year in the second round was a great pickup out of Colorado, and I think Julian Love this year, man, top notch. Moving into the third round at pick 79, I was selecting Chase Vinovich, defensive end from Michigan. He was hugely impressive at the combine. Like, you look at his tape, he was your typical, day 3 grindy edge rusher that's never going to wow you with his athleticism, but he's tough. He'll always, be a guy that's healthy, part of a rotation, but, it is what it is. And then he came out of nowhere and had a very, very good combine. Blew a lot of expectations out the water. 4.59 40, a 6.94 3-cone, which is one of the best out of all the defensive ends, a 4.11 shuttle, which is one of the best out of all the ends. He had great college production, and some people might think there is a legitimate shot he could end up being a better pro than teammate and line mate Rashawn Gary, which I don't know if I'll go that far, but I think Vinovich is not getting enough credit for how good he will be as a rookie and in his NFL career. He's great technique, and when you look at the Falcons defense right now, there's some question marks at defensive end. Obviously with Vic Beasley, he had a couple big years, but he's still pretty inconsistent, especially when it comes against the run. So, maybe Vic Beasley will just be best utilized as a rotational guy. Have him come in on clear passing downs. Takk McKinley, I don't really know a whole lot about his issues. He's having some off-the-field stuff. I don't know if it's a mental thing. What's going on there? Seems like it's somewhat similar from an outsider looking in to what happened with Everson Griffin and the Minnesota Vikings. Like, it should be rectified, but there's still some question marks there. And beyond that, you got Steven Means, who I actually like that the Atlanta Falcons brought him in. He was like the preseason All-Star for like 2 years for the Philadelphia Eagles. It sucks that we couldn't keep him. I'm glad he's getting employed. But you could definitely say that one of the bigger what's going on areas for Atlanta Falcons could be defensive end. And a guy like Chase Vinovich can come in as a rookie and be a healthy part of a rotation and bring that stability that I think they need at that defensive end spot going forward. Going into the 4th round, they have 2 4th-round picks. First up at 117, I'm selecting Gerald Willis III, defensive tackle from Miami. I think he could come in and contribute right away. He absolutely lived in the backfield last year for the U against the run. Tackle for loss out the wazoo. 18 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. He just lived it. I mean, he will be here in the 4th round because of the off-the-field issues. Had some stuff earlier on in his career at Florida, had to transfer. But we know Dan Quinn has the Gator connection. He probably has a little extra knowledge, maybe more so some other coaches in this draft. And I think, what Gerald Willis brings in the 4th round as potential defensive tackle 3 as a rookie, maybe competes with Denadra Senat to be the guy that plays along Grady Jarrett. I think that the 4th round, that's a great pick here. I know Dan Quinn is probably going to like what Gerald Willis is going to bring to the table, and it's a scheme fit for that defense. Going to the 2nd 4th round pick at 137, I was selecting Rodney Anderson, running back from Oklahoma. I'll say right now, out of all my mock drafts that I've done, Atlanta Falcons probably coming in like the top 5. I really do like this mock draft from top to bottom. And like I said, at 4th round, we get Rodney Anderson, who I've made clear is probably my favorite running back in this year's draft class. And I think he would be regarded as the best running back in this year's draft class if he didn't have that big cloud hanging over his head of his injury-prone tag, which is completely valid. He has gotten hurt almost every year in college, but he's been on the field, man. He is that prototypical running back that NFL teams and GMs and front offices want in 2019. I think he can come in and take over Tevin Coleman's spot on the roster. Not the same type of players, but I think we saw last year, Atlanta feels pretty comfortable running with 3 running backs. Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman, and Ito Smith. And, look at the roster right now. You got Kenyon Barner. He's more of a special teamer. Brian Hill was a 5th-round pick in 2017 out of Wyoming. I'm going to guess Wyoming. I think it was Wyoming, but he's not really panning out. So a guy like Rodney Anderson come in and remain that 3-headed running back attack that they want. It fits the mold of what they want. Devontae Freeman was a 4th-round pick. Ito Smith, 4th-round pick. Rodney Anderson, 4th-round pick. So I think for this running back by committee in the 4th round, getting a guy like Rodney Anderson makes a whole lot of sense here for the Atlanta Falcons. Going into the 5th round at pick 152, I'm selecting Anthony Johnson, wide receiver from Buffalo. I'm kind of looking now, so like, where do they kind of going forward? Where can they trim some fat on the roster? I think ultimately you got at wide receiver Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. Those are going to be your 2 big outside guys. I think they're re-signing Julio Jones to big time money, which makes sense. So Mohamed Sanu, he's a solid role player, but he's getting paid a lot of money, a decent amount of money. So I think a guy like Anthony Johnson from Buffalo could come in and potentially be his replacement long term. I think it's a great value pickup here in the 5th round. He has a lot of production. A lot of people know Tyree Jackson, the quarterback from Buffalo. Well, Anthony Johnson was his favorite receiver. In the last 2 years at Buffalo, Anthony Johnson had 133 catches, 2,300 yards, and 25 touchdowns. And the big concern for him was, is he going to be able to get separation at the next level? Is he just going to be clearly a slot guy that is going to have to get schemed to get open, or is he going to have the athletic ability to do? And at his pro day, 4.50. I mean, obviously, it's going to be a little bit different than what if he ran the 40-yard dash at the combine. But a 4.50 at a pro day, for me, lets me know that speed isn't really as big of a concern as some people in the scouting community are making it out to be. And what is still sitting here in the 5th round for the Atlanta Falcons is tremendous value. I think right away, you'll obviously, Justin Hardy's got a decent amount of snaps, but I think a guy like Anthony Johnson can take over that role and do a lot more with the limited touches and then eventually be the successor to Mohamed Sanu. Going to the 2nd 5th round pick at 172, I was selecting Jarrett Stidham, quarterback from Auburn. Jarrett Stidham, going into this season, had a legitimate shot to be a 1st-round quarterback because he has very good accuracy, which he still showed this year, but kind of got exposed for the other years. His pocket presence, IQ, all that stuff kind of looked a little bit shaky. He went from being a guy that could get drafted as a potential franchise quarterback to now being more so a high-end backup that might be able to do some spot duty and not look too bad. And when you look at the Atlanta Falcons, who do they have behind Matt Ryan? You have 95-year-old Matt Schaub. You have Kurt Benkert. A guy like Jarrett Stidham is, I think, pretty decent value if you're comparing where most mocks and most scouts had him valued to where he is right now in the draft process. And he's that backer behind Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan goes down right now. Imagine just having a guy like Jarrett Stidham, who at one point was considered a 1st-round QB. There's a chance that he doesn't turn to be like Matt Barkley, who had a very similar background and could develop into something. And maybe even be a long-term option, a long-term replacement for Matt Ryan. How old is Matty Ice? 34? 33, 34? So, I mean, getting a guy that's 22, 23... Could be nice to get a nice young quarterback in there that's not just Kurt Benkert. Going into the 6th round at pick 186, I'm selecting Trayvon Wesson, tight end fullback from West Virginia. He is a utility player that I think could be a big-time contributor right away as a rookie. His tape is really good. Shout out to Brian Baldinger for the Baldy Breakdowns on Twitter for bringing some of his tape up. Good blocker, yards after the catch. He looks for contact. He's a tough style of player, and I think he has the upside to be tight end too next to Austin Hooper. And you look at their new OC, Dirk Cutter, he loved utilizing 2 tight ends in Tampa Bay. He had O.J. Howard, he had Cameron Brate. He valued both of them. And I think you look at the Atlanta Falcons right now at tight end, not a whole lot there behind Austin Hooper. You got Luke Stalker, who's like, I'm pretty sure more of a blocker when he was with the Titans. Saubert, Logan Paul, like, a guy like Wesco more so fits that mold. It brings a lot more utility to the offense. You could probably have him replace Ricky Ortiz and just, take up, he's just going to take up multiple spots in one player's roster spot. You know what I'm saying? Like, he can do multiple things. You can trim some fat around here on the offense just by selecting Wesco in the 6th round. And I guarantee, like I said, 6th, 7th round, they're not always locks to make the final 53. If the Falcons get Wesco, he's making that 53. And then finish up the draft here in the 7th round at pick 230. I was selecting Chris Boyd, cornerback from Texas. Boyd is a physical cornerback with prototypical size, but it needs a lot of refinement to his game, especially from a tactical aspect. Gets bit on a lot of plays, gets caught at exposed, but you still see like the flashes, the sporadic high-level play that makes you think that he's a developmental prospect. Could land on a practice squad, could not, but I do think Dan Quinn is one of the better DCs in the league and in growing and developing players. You probably will be able to find something here with Chris Boyd. And the reason why I actually mentioned him, and I think he's a nice little pickup here in the 7th round, is that you're obviously going to get special teams ability, but he might be able to transition to safety or play a little bit of both. Fill that Brian Poole role on defense. Brian Poole was a corner, also could play some safety, hit like a safety, could do some cover things like a corner that some safeties can't, like depth safeties can't. I think a guy like Chris Boyd has that potential, if he has a decent camp, to potentially get that Brian Poole role on the defense. Even though it's probably one of the Ricardo Allen or DeMonte KZs to lose, I still think adding more depth to that style of defender, which has been some, a little bit different. Not every team will have that Brian Poole type player on their defense. So it's just maybe slightly niche to the Falcons defense, add more depth to that niche position. So there you go, guys. That is the 7th round mock draft here for the Atlanta Falcons. Falcon fans in particular, let me know in the comment section below what you think about this mock draft. As always, if you're the first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if you enjoyed, and until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.